This is my review of RWBY, Volume 7, Episode 3, Aesop's. And given that they're the title of this episode, it feels only right to start off by talking about them. Let's start off with Clover. So we got confirmation that his weapon is, yes, indeed, a fishing pole, which, a whole lot weird about that. I mean, I kind of get its use. He tries to use it to snatch up the guys at the end of the episode and then uses it later on to pull its mask away from its body. So it definitely does have its uses, but it just feels kind of limited. It does feel like it's a weapon that's more useful in a group. Like, he can hold them down while someone else in his team delivers the finishing blow to take them out, but it just still feels weird to me. And yes, we got confirmation that his semblance is in fact good fortune. He's lucky, essentially. Think Domino from Deadpool 2, so that's interesting to say the least. A lot of people are, shipping him with Crow for that, but I don't really see, Crow loving him when he heard that. I saw more jealousy, even self-hatred about the thought that, there's someone out there who's living life so easy while he's suffering so much because of his semblance. We also get an interesting confirmation where he says, sometimes I can't keep it under control. I'd always assumed, I think he even said at one point, that his semblance isn't something you turn on and off, it's always affecting him. So is it something more like it's a power that he can have some control of? Like he can make things unluckier, like the drop of a hat, or if he loses control of his emotions, if he gets upset, then it's more likely for bad luck to happen to overcome him? I'm not sure quite yet, so it's something I hope we get a little more confirmation on in the future. Also, really hope there's a scene at some point where John, boosts the semblance of Crow or Clover, because that would just be funny as all hell. Crow also got an interesting new outfit. That kind of reminds me of the pattern on Ozpin's cane, so that's weird. But like I said before, a lot of people are saying, oh, this is great. It means Crow can finally work with someone, can finally live a good life, can finally be part of a team. And I think the exact opposite of that. I mean, Crow is still, having bad luck, despite the fact that Clover's there. It just seems like it's limited a little bit. It's like he still falls, but Clover catches him. Clover still misses the Grim, probably because of Crow's bad luck. The support beam collapses and nearly kills Clover, but it just misses him. It falling down was, Crow's misfortune, but I guess him not dying was Clover's good fortune. Let's get just a little bit backstory where he says that he trusts Ironwood with his life, so interesting. I still have some theories that he might be the traitor. I have a much better candidate right now, but he's definitely on the list, so if that's not the case, I do want to, hear more about how Ironwood earned his trust so much, or what they've been through together in their lives. That's definitely interesting. Alright, next up is Vine, and his semblance seems to be he can make his arms go really, really long. Not gonna lie, this didn't seem like that useful a semblance at first, but he definitely gets good use out of it. He can essentially use it to restrain enemies, wrap around them and pull them closer or keep them from moving. And he can use them to swing around, giving him much better mobility. He definitely comes off as a very serious person, all mission-oriented. I mean, at one point he says, if this room explodes, we're going to ruin the mission. And Mara has to interject, yeah, and we'll die. Don't forget that. If this happens, we will die. That's more important than the mission. I mean, apparently not to Vine, but yeah. I also have no idea what his weapon is. I don't think he actually used it at all this episode. I mean, you can see it on his back. It's some weird circular triangular thing. No idea. Just no idea. I'm not sure if that has something to do with his semblance, like his arms stretching. Like maybe it requires dust and that's where he stores in his back or what, but very strange that he didn't really use it this episode. Alright, next up, Elm. Her semblance essentially means that she can stay standing wherever she wants. It locks her feet in the exact place she wants them to be, so useful if she's sliding down a cliff. But I didn't really see much other, practical use from this until she went up against the Grim and was able to basically hold it in place because her feet are anchored to the ground, so she literally can't move from that spot. She's certainly a interesting character. with her love of jumping out of airplanes and her comment, "Perhaps you kids won't get yourself killed after all." Which was apparently supposed to be a compliment, I guess. I kind of see that. It's interesting. The lore that the fable that she is based on is the elm and the vine. Essentially, the two of them require each other to survive and to grow stronger together. Which certainly makes a lot of sense. Vine's quiet, calm nature certainly balances her out a little better and helps explain her insane actions to the newbies. Next up is Harriet. Her weapons appear to be some kind of arm boosters that give her super strength. They actually kind of remind me of Hazel, who boosts himself using dust. It seems to be just the same with her, Dust to make her stronger without having to put it directly into her freaking body. Her semblance is essentially that she can move really, really fast. Though it looks like she might need to charge this up before she uses it. You see her basically go into a runner's pose, kind of reminds me of the Flash here, where she builds up the energy and then runs at breakneck speed to catch the falling dust. She claims that her semblance is faster than Ruby's early on in the episode. Then later on, she says the semblance is something else, that it isn't just speed, and it's more than Ruby realizes, which I think a lot of us have speculated for a while. I've seen a lot of theory videos about that for quite a bit. And I'm not entirely sure what she meant by that, though. Did she just mean that it's Ruby's turning into petals when she moves fast? Because, that's fairly obvious to all of us, especially Ruby. But, if she isn't really fully aware of this and she learns, how to turn more into petals, it'd be really cool down the road. Like, imagine Ruby turning herself into just a storm of petals and using them to cut the Grimm into pieces. That would be really freaking awesome. But this might have something more to do with how Ruby moves, because she can also apparently, jump into the air and move side to side, left to right, while she's in her petal form. So maybe that just means, she has more freedom of motion than she realizes. Maybe she can even fly using this semblance, which would definitely change her landing strategy. Oh, that'd be fun. Alright, finally there is Marrow, and his weapon appears to be a gun, boomerang, chainsaw thing. So, yeah, fairly terrifying of a weapon. I like it. He seems to have a fairly honest view of the faunus. Essentially, he realizes that we're at the bottom. Society realizes that. They do nothing to help us. So they can, keep doing good, while at the same time ignoring people who just make life worse for us. So yeah, humans suck. Oh, his semblance is also basically just stopping time for his enemies, which really, really increases my belief that he is in fact the traitor of the team. I just see it now, they're all celebrating, they won the victory, they have the staff and the lantern, and then he snaps his fingers, freezes all of them, steals the relics, and returns them to Salem. This seems to be further enhanced by the fable that he's based on, which apparently has been confirmed by RWBY. Interesting. Anyway, it's the dog and its reflection. Essentially, it's a story about a dog who managed to get a piece of meat and is walking over a bridge. Now, as he's walking, he turns to his side and sees his reflection, but he believes it to be another dog with a bigger piece of meat, and so he opens his mouth to bark at that dog, demanding that piece of meat as well, and in doing so, he drops his meat into the river and loses it. Essentially saying, if you try to get more than you already have, you end up losing it all. So I could definitely see that being, a reference to him. He's going to try and get a better life with Salem, bark at his own allies to betray them, and then end up losing everything when Salem murders him. Or, abandons him to be arrested or thrown in jail or whatever. Either way, not predicting a particularly good ending for him. But overall, I thought the Aesops were amazingly well done, and what really, put them over the top is their teamwork. There's not a second thought, a second hesitation. With a simple word, they all know what is exactly they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to work together. And it was just really amazing to see how this all played out. I mean, even Team RWBY and Juniper were just, in awe of this, watching them wow, this is how strong we can get if we keep trying. I mean, teamwork has definitely been, a key focus of Team RWBY for the entire series, since their first fight, really, against the Nevermore way back when. The technique they made, the catapult to go after the bird thing, that could only be done because of their teamwork, because how they work together. We saw that even more in the fight against Torchwick and his giant robot. They had By that point, they had enough time working together to come up with coordinated attacks that were very useful. Here, though, the Aesops don't even need to call out, oh, do move 73. They just instantly know. And that's a whole new level. And that's a whole nother level of just teamwork right there. So I'm looking forward to seeing RWBY, get better as a team, better at reading each other, better at reading the situation to the point where they can just act without having to say a thing. All right, moving on. Actually, before I move on to Team RWBY, there are two things I want to mention. First off, I've seen a lot of people complain that there was no real reason for Team RWBY to be here. They didn't really help in the fight all that much or have anything really to contribute, but I don't think that's the case at all. I don't really think this was so much a mission for them as it was an interview. This was for the Aesops to see, okay, how does Team RWBY do in a fight? How do they handle each other? How do they coordinate? What are their abilities? What are their powers? I mean, sure, they probably have the Vital Festival footage, but that's fairly old by this point, and they've grown a lot since then, so they wanted an update to see how they do in real time in actual combat. Essentially, like I said, this is a job interview. Anyway, next thing I want to discuss. A lot of people are complaining that Weiss, Blake, Nora, they didn't really get any significant upgrades to their weapons anyway, and they seem pretty upset about this. But these were just the upgrades that Team RWBY and Juniper asked for. Pietro actually goes out of his way to say that he has more plans for them, more upgrades that he thinks would work with them, but he'll have to talk about them and add them in later on. So they could definitely get another round of upgrades after this. I think they just have so much planned, so many upgrades and advancements to all of their weapons and fighting styles. They didn't want to just show them off all at once. They wanted to slowly spoon feed us them. But yes, now we got our first look at their new outfits, and honestly, I think they all look pretty good. Still iffy about Blake's haircut. I mean, it's cute, but just still feels like cute little work, and no idea what Weiss is doing with her hair. I mean, literally no idea. She somehow gained a good couple feet of it, too, so bizarre, honestly. But let's get into all this and start off with RWBY. So she got a new hood, which I found weird. I thought the hood she was wearing was her mother's. Like, she wore her mother's hood to feel safe, like her mother was there. I thought that was a whole thing. I might be wrong. Maybe it's just, she wore a hood that was inspired by her mother's. Let me know down below if I'm wrong about that. Of course, RWBY is still freaking magnificent, using her scythe to propel herself down slowly as her landing strategy. And her big upgrade is now the fact that her scythe can flip around. The blade of her scythe can flip, allowing her more versatility in combat. She no longer has to, swing the blade back and forth to get to the right way. She can just literally just press a button, it flips over, and then she can cut off the enemy's head. Also, just absolutely love the scene where RWBY beats Harriet out for getting the dust before it hits the ground. I mean, just good for her there. That was absolutely amazing. And really proved her worth to the Aesops as a speedster. And even resulted in Elm parading her around as the champion, the victor. I just thought that was absolutely amazing. I love that. Though Yang's line here is pretty interesting. Wait until she sees what she can do with her eyes. So, yeah, the silver eyes. I mean, I get kind of why she's keeping the rest of the truth from Ironwood and all that, but I kind of feel like his silver eyes are something he needs to know about, something that he can use, something he can, save the lives of his civilians at least. And if he keeps going to battle without knowing about them, it's going to lead to problems. I mean, that at least you should definitely talk to Ironwood about. Let him know that he has this weapon at his disposal. I'm kind of hoping next episode starts off with them leaving the mine. There's 1,000 Grimm outside, all waiting to attack them. And RWBY just no, I got this, and vaporizes them all. Unlikely, that'd be pretty freaking hilarious. Alright, next up is Weiss. Using her glyphs and then summoning a freaking sword. And summoning a freaking sword to use as a ramp to get down was absolutely amazing. I love that. But no real improvements to her weapons as far as I can see. Her weapon looks exactly the same. I don't really see any differences. I mean, Pietro said he had more in mind, so maybe there's still an upgrade waiting for her down the road. Like I said before, I think she relies too much on Winter as an inspiration. It was even said that her weapon was inspired and based on Winter, so I think she needs to move a little bit away from that. Kind of just figure out who she is on her own, figure out her own combat style. Because we've already seen, at least from the summonings, that her and Winter use very different styles. Winter summons thousands of like little birds to attack enemies all at once, or a bunch of Grimm at once to attack her enemies, while Weiss is more one big badass. Not sure that's going to correlate into a different sword style, but we'll see about that. We also just get this absolutely freaking amazing scene with Weiss right here. She basically remembers how when the mine exploded, her father was furious, not upset that he lost workers, not saddened that people had died because of him, because of his lax safety concerns, but furious because he was losing money, because this would cut his profits, make him look weak to his fellow trillionaires. And here we get the moment I have been waiting for a long time. Weiss finally apologizes to Blake for all the awful, awful things her family has done to her people. I mean, I see people online complaining, like, oh, this doesn't have to be done. What did Weiss really do? I mean, Weiss has literally been, profiting off the violence just like her father. I mean, till the beginning of Volume 3, she was still getting an allowance from her father for the horrible, war crimes he's been committing. And I think this is just a really great first step to Weiss confronting her father in next episode or the episode after that. Now that she's finally apologized to Blake, she can go tell off her father for all the awful things he's done. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I mean, seriously, as it's been portrayed, Weiss's family is like the number one, producer of slave labor. And yet this is only mentioned like twice in the entire 6 volumes. Once, when Blake and Weiss first met, when Blake commented on how the Schnee Dust Company used unethical business practices. And then again around the fire in Volume 2, when they're looking for the headquarters of the White Fang, But even then, she didn't really say anything directly to Blake, more just an open discussion about how her father was awful. Here she is finally apologizing. It's just such a good moment, such a moment we needed to just move on. But yeah, I loved it. I know others didn't, but I'm just glad it finally happened. All right, moving on, let's talk about Blake. So she decides to cut her hair. Apparently that's a big deal for her. I mean, long hair in combat can be a bit of a hindrance. Of course, her allies don't seem to get the message, as Weiss somehow made her hair a foot longer, and of course nobody's going to convince Yang to cut her hair short. Though this does lead to the best Bumblebee moment second best Bumblebee moment for all of RWBY. As Yang just kind of staring at her hair like, oh, your hair, I'm just not used to it. And then just Blake blushes furiously. Honestly, I think it's the first blush we've ever gotten. But yeah, that's definitely a cute moment. I really liked it. Something else I liked is Blake's sword. I know a lot of people aren't happy that, they just basically superglued Blake's sword back together, but I like the, yellow stripe in it. It's kind of symbolic about how when she was broken, Yang helped put her back together. And then together they murdered her ex-boyfriend. As all good friends should do. I'd like to say that, Weiss's ruby earrings and all that are symbolisms of how she's welcomed Ruby into her life and how she's warmed her up, but Weiss has always liked red, so I can't make that argument. Next up, this is honestly just a dark moment, as Blake comes to realize that this is the cave-in that killed Ilya's freaking parents! I mean, Jesus Christ, that was dark. Actually, I had to pause this when I was watching, like, oh my god, please do not tell me this is that mine. I definitely didn't see that coming, but it's just a great moment to really, show the pain that they've experienced here. And then they immediately switch to exploiting Blake's ability to see in the dark, her faunus powers, as a useful resource, which is definitely interesting. I mean, Blake's night vision was explained in, Volume 1 in the Ublex class. Dr. Ublex class, sorry. And yet, since then, she's used it, once. So I am glad, she's finally getting more use out of that whole night vision thing. Oh yeah, and her semblance saved her life in this very interesting jump scare. I mean, seriously, it was so quick and fast, I didn't actually realize what was happening for a second. Right. Which does lead into a bigger debate about Blake's usefulness, the usefulness of her semblance. I mean, essentially just lets her, avoid being killed. Meanwhile, Yang, Weiss, RWBY all have super strong, powerful semblances that let them be just monsters in combat. I mean, Blake's semblance definitely has its use, and especially And that was especially true in their battle against Torchwick, when Weiss gave her those dust fragments so that she could enhance her semblance. And yet she hasn't done that since, which is weird. I'm hoping that's one of the upgrades Pietro was thinking about using. Hopefully. I mean, Blake definitely does need an upgrade of some sort. I'm just not sure what it is quite yet. Alright, next up is Yang. So she got a new robot arm after her last one was damaged. As well as a cool jacket and a pair of sunglasses that make her just look absolutely badass. Oh, and apparently she has grenades now. I absolutely love that. She just punched the two Grimm in the face, and then a few minutes later they exploded. I can definitely see that being very useful in combats against basically anyone she fights, She just manages to hit them once, then run away, and then she can, set off the explosion, knocking them out. It's definitely an improvement over the old style she had, where she just basically went crazy, hitting things over and over until they no longer existed. It's a smarter move, and definitely shows she's growing to a less angry person. Alright, moving on, Team Juniper. More Junior, I guess. I'm not really sure their official designation anymore. Overall, I think they look okay. Still a little iffy on John's haircut. I mean, it looks alright, just not great, honestly. Like Ren looks, yeah. He's carrying his father's sword in his arm and added quite a bit of pink to his outfits. I'm hoping that's symbolic of, him letting Nora into his life, that she's become, part of his. I hope so. And Nora just looks absolutely freaking adorable. Though Ren didn't really seem to get the hint that, Nora wanted some praise right there. And oh god, poor John is the most dense guy in the freaking world. Oh, poor John. That being said, though, John finally has a freaking landing strategy. I mean, seriously, it took him 7 freaking years to finally get it. Yeah, but now he's a freaking paraglider because his shield can produce energy, which he can use to land safely or knock enemies away. Really like that. Looks like Ren's added retractable blades to his weapon, which lets him get in close and take out the Grimm. I like that. And Nora doesn't seem any different. Maybe she seems different. She seems like she's wielding the hammer a little easier, like it's lighter than it was before. That might just be my imagination, though. Hard to say. But, like I said before, there could still be more upgrades down the road. I'm sure Pietro could think of better upgrades for Nora's hammer than she could. And I'm sure she's going to be very excited about finding out what those upgrades are. The other things I want to talk about, the Geist was said to be extremely old, which I like. It's something that hasn't really been mentioned in quite a while. I think, last time was, officially was the Volume 2, but I think it was also mentioned A World of Remnants, that as Grimm get older and older, they get wiser and stronger and smarter, to the point where they can learn and essentially attain human-level intelligence, making them way more deadly and dangerous. That's definitely something I want to see more of. I'm really curious if there are like millennia-old Grimm out there who can talk, or have some unbeknownst powers that make them incredibly dangerous or something. I don't know. I definitely think it's something that could definitely be interesting to bring in down the road. They got new scrolls, and I'm not entirely sure what's different about them. Maybe it's the fact that they can go sideways now. Give them like a quick view. Hard to say. Next up, thank you freaking God, we got RWBY and her team talking about lying to Ironwood. I mean, this needed to happen. I'm glad it finally did. RWBY confirms that, yeah, she is going to tell Ironwood the whole truth, just not quite yet. Because, truthfully, RWBY doesn't fully trust Ironwood. And Blake agrees with her, which I think makes perfect sense for her character. I've seen other people complain about it. But don't forget, trusting a guy who had good intentions and was looking to save the world was the reason for most of Blake's problems. I mean, I'm not saying, Ironwood is as bad as Adam. I would never make that comparison. But at the same time, she knows what it means for a person to say they're trying to save the world while at the same time being capable of doing awful, awful things. So yeah, the plan is definitely to tell them eventually. They're just, waiting for the right moment. Of course, by then it's going to be too late, and lots of people will have died. Or things might go the other way. We saw at the end of the episode, Tyrion killed Forrest, and I think that's part of the larger plan to create kind of a rebellion in Mantle against Atlas, Oh, this guy threw a rock at a police car, and then he was found dead a few hours later. I bet Ironwood did it. Keep raising fears and suspicion of Ironwood plotting horrible, evil plans. And eventually, people will turn on him. And Team RWBY might even fall for that as well, thinking, oh god, what if this is true? Could Ironwood really be doing this? Which is another reason why I think Crow's going to leave the team and go investigate all this and see what's happening down on Mantle, try to get the bottom of it. Of course, it's entirely possible that someone else is going to spill the beans. I mean, well, thank God they left the, relic with Oscar away from, the combat where it can keep getting stolen and keep attracting Grimm. But they left Oscar with the relic with Ironwood, and I kind of feel like Ironwood and Oscar are in a talk. They seem to be, sparring a bit in the opening scenes. So I definitely think they're going to end up talking, and Oscar might end up spilling the beans about everything to him, which could be problematic. And of course, Oscar has to say the line that we've all been thinking this entire time. Hiding things from Ironwood the same as the way Ozpin hid things from us. Yeah, no doubt, that's the whole point of all this. They need to learn that there's a reason behind Ozpin's lies to understand him better, so that he'll feel better about coming back out and saying, "Hi guys, I woke up from my 6-month nap and now I'm here to help you." 6 months, actually, no. Oh, Jesus Christ, that was like a week ago. Oh my god. Yeah, it's been like a week or maybe 2 weeks since Ozpin went to sleep. Wow, that's a real game changer right there. So this really isn't as big a temper tantrum as it seems to be. For us it's been 2 years. For the rest of them, like I said, a week, maybe 2. So that does kind of change perspective on things quite a bit. All right, a few last things I want to talk about. The Sentinels, these centipedal monster Grimm things. I absolutely love them. The way they're animated, the way they spit acid, it just all looks so beautifully done, and it's probably one of the favorite things I've ever seen animated in RWBY, so just really love them. And the mine, when they got to the central chamber, the dust mine, it was absolutely freaking beautiful. This whole thing just looked amazing, and it was such a tense moment. I mean, you could literally see, the dust they kick up with their shoes, a bead of sweat falling down John's face. It just really, emphasized how impactful a moment this was, how powerful this room was. I really like that. All right, and those are my thoughts on RWBY Episode 3. Like I said, next episode, I'd like it if RWBY used her silver eyes to take out a bunch of Grimm. That'd be fun. I think Ironwood's going to try and wheedle information out of Oscar, figure out what's really going on. The death of Force is definitely going to get some attention. I think Crow's going to leave the team and go investigate, see what's happening with that. I mean, Robin Hill is like all over the opening, and she was emphasized heavily in the first episode, but we haven't actually seen her or Happy Huntresses yet, so definitely want to, get some more information on them. Hopefully finally see them, see what they're up to. And maybe they can talk to Pietro about those weapon upgrades that he wants to put in. Hopefully they're all combat ready by the time they have to fight Salem's army of flying monkeys. And I definitely 100% think Mara's going to be the traitor. But again, let me know what you think down below. Is Mara the traitor? What do you think of this episode? Who's your favorite Aesop? Who's your least favorite? Who do you think is the traitor? Be sure to like and subscribe. See you in this next video. And until then,
peace.